Hello and welcome to another video of mine. Today I've got an interesting comparison because I'm comparing the Xbox Series S against the PS4 Pro. Now, I've had the Xbox for a little over a month now and I've been using it extensively as my primary gaming console. Apart from that, I have actually owned the PS4 Pro for a little under a year and I've played so many games on it. In fact, so many that it's a device which is very dear to me. Now today I'm comparing a device which has now become my primary gaming console to a device which is extremely dear to me, the PS4 Pro. And we're gonna go over a lot of things today, like the specifications, the graphics, the load times, the various games, the exclusivity factor when it comes to the games, what are the games that are optimized, what do you mean by PS4 Pro enhanced games, etc. So a lot of things in store for you guys. So I would suggest that you grab a tub of popcorn and tune into what we're gonna discuss about these two gaming consoles, and kindly stick around till the end of the video because you'll get to make a decision, an informed decision rather, as to which one should you get in 2021 heading into 2022. So with that said, let's get started, folks. Alright, let's start with the form factor of these two devices. As you can see, I've got the PS4 Pro right here and I've got the Xbox Series S with their beautiful controllers, and as you can make out, it's quite a difference because let's leave the controllers aside. All right, let's take this out and now let's try to compare them right next to one another. So you take a look at the size difference of these two devices. I'm just trying to hold the camera still as well. So as you can see, there's a massive difference in terms of these two devices, and if I just take the Xbox and just place it here, it's just half the size. And now let's turn it around a little bit so that we can take a look at the thickness of this device. Whoa. But take a look at the thickness of these two devices. Now in terms of thickness, the Xbox is slightly thicker, as you can see, and the PS4 Pro is slightly slimmer. Now in terms of the ports behind the device, all right, so this is where I zoom in a little bit. Now you've got the power cord or the power cable. You've got the power cable here with the Xbox Series S as well. And apart from that, you've got an HDMI cable here and you've got an HDMI cable here as well. So HDMI, HDMI. Now apart from this, there is an aux cable here. So this is your aux cable, and you have an optical out as well, which is missing. These two things, they are missing on your Xbox Series S. So you've got an aux, you've got an optical out, and then there's one USB output here, and there is an Ethernet port here. So that is available on the Xbox Series S as well. So if I just come over here, there is the Ethernet port there. I'm just going to zoom in here and I'm going to show you these. So again, the Ethernet port there are two USBs, one HDMI. There is a storage expansion as well, which is Xbox's, you could say proprietary storage expansion, which is as expensive as the device itself. Wow. So I'm not going to talk about that. So behind the device, these are the ports that are available. Now let's quickly take a look at what's available in front as well in terms of ports or connectivity. Now, oh, look at that. Oh man, this is heavy. Okay, so here you've got two USB ports again with the PS4 Pro right in front. You've got a power button here, and you've also got a button to eject your disc because this has an optical drive. So you can actually put in a disc in here on the PS4 Pro. Now that is missing on the Xbox Series S because this happens to be an all digital device. So on the front, all you get is just a USB out, and then you have this tiny little button to sync your controller. So if you want to connect your controller, I'm just going to zoom in here very quickly. If you want to connect your controller, then you can do that with that. And speaking of controllers, we're going to get to that as well. And then you have the power button right here. So this is what the form factor looks like. And again, massive difference. Look at that. So let's quickly take a look at the remote as well. While we are talking about these devices, of course, you can't operate these devices without the remote. That's where the remote actually comes in. Now, if you take a look at the PS4 Pro and the PS4 Slim, they have the same remote. Now the Xbox remote has been the same from the Xbox One, the original Xbox One. Well, there are slight changes like this part here, that has changed slightly. And also you have this extra button, you know, a share button here. I'm just going to zoom in so that you can take a look at it as well. So that share button, that is the extra button which has now come in Xbox Series X and S. The PlayStation button, it's quite nice to hold in hand, and I quite like, you know, the feel of the PlayStation 4 remote controller, but I like the Xbox controller better when it comes to the feel in the hand. It just feels a little better to hold. So in terms of that, the Xbox scores higher, but here is where the Xbox does not score higher. Now, of course, a lot of people might like this. I personally don't, because when I press these buttons, you know, it does have a tactile feel, but they're just so loud. So when you're gaming, especially when you're gaming and recording, that noisiness actually comes into the recording as well. Whereas with the PS4, it's not as noisy. It's much better, much better. Because if you press this, you know, like this, then it hardly makes a sound. But with the Xbox, even if you press it gently, see, it is loud. So that is something that I don't like about the Xbox remote. Now, apart from that, you have batteries that you put in on your Xbox remote. Of course, you have you know, the option of putting in or plugging in, you know, one of those battery packs that you can charge and use. I actually prefer the AA batteries, not the AAA. Sorry about that. I actually prefer this because, you know, I have rechargeable batteries, and anytime, you know, the battery runs out or it dies out, I just swap them over very quickly. Whereas with the PS4 Pro, once the battery runs out, you actually have to, you know, charge it again, and that takes you off your gaming experience, doesn't it? So you can't actually swap batteries in here because there is no place to do that. Now, the only other option that you can have, oopsie, is that, you know, you buy another remote. And speaking of which, while we're still here, that's exactly what I did. I got another remote, so whenever the battery dies out on one, I kind of, you know, start using the other one. So that's an option that you can have. But with the Xbox controller, the benefit is that you can just swap the batteries. The form factor can actually be a big difference. This is a device that you can tuck away anywhere, and it just neatly, you know, sits anywhere. The form factor, you know, the shape of this device is so fantastic. The minimalistic approach that Xbox has taken, really appreciate that. And I actually like the form factor of the Xbox over the PS4 Pro, because this is a chunky device. It's a huge device, and you know, you might have problems, you know, fitting this in. In fact, even with the PS5, PS5 is much bigger in size when compared to the Xbox Series S. So you're gonna have a hard time, you know, tucking this away somewhere. But still, you know, it's not that bad. And I love my PS4 Pro. I've actually used this for a year, so I have a very strong attachment to it. Now, with that said, let's move over to the other section and, you know, take a look at all the other things. Okay, now let's quickly take a look at the specifications sheet as well. The thing that I do want to mention is that the PS4 Pro is actually a previous gen device, so do be kind to it. The Xbox Series S is actually a current gen device. But with that said, let's see how they stack up against one another. Now, when it comes to the CPU performance, the Xbox Series S clearly has an edge because it has 8 cores running at 3.6 GHz, whereas your PS4 Pro also has 8 cores, but it runs or is clocked at 2.3 GHz. Apart from that, in terms of the teraflops, they are more or less the same. It's 4.14 on the PS4 Pro, it's 4 teraflops on the Xbox Series S. Now, 8 GB of DDR5 RAM, that's to keep in mind that it's DDR5, not DDR6, because the Xbox Series S has 10 GB of DDR6 RAM. Now, here's the thing though, out of this 10, only 8 GB of RAM actually has a memory bandwidth of 224 GB per second, and 2 out of this 10 GB has a memory bandwidth of only 56, you could say, GB per second. So that's something that you would want to keep in mind. That's why I put in a slight little asterisk there when it comes to Xbox. Now, all of the 8 GB of RAM, you have them running at 176 GB per second. That's the memory bandwidth that you get on the PS4 Pro. And you also have an additional, you could say GB, because you have that to run all your operating system, the other apps that is on the PS4 Pro. And apart from that, when it comes to the GPU, now this is where the Xbox clearly crushes the PS4 Pro, because in terms of the GPU, it's almost twice of what you get on the PS4 Pro. You get 800 megahertz, and here you get 1565 megahertz of GPU clock speed. So that's almost double, you could say. You've got 1 terabyte of storage on your PS4 Pro, so that's definitely a very good factor. And you've got only 512 GB. I know I'm smiling when I'm saying that. And the reason why I'm smiling is because out of that 512 GB, not all of that 512 GB is actually available for you to download games and play. Only, I believe it's around 380 GB. I'm gonna put it up on the screen as well. Only that is available for you to download games and play. And there is another factor that you have to keep in mind, which I'm gonna cover when we come to games. All right, so do keep this in mind. I'm gonna discuss this aspect of storage. And here, the clear winner is the PS4 Pro, because you have the 1 terabyte of storage straight out of the box. Now, on both the devices, you do have the option of connecting an external storage. So you can connect an SSD, you can connect an external hard disk drive, yes, those mechanical ones, and you can expand the storage simply plugging in through the USB ports. And when it comes to the PlayStation, beautiful, seamless experience. When it comes to Xbox Series S, not so much. All the games that have been optimized for Xbox Series S, which means that if the game has this logo of X and S, then these games have to be stored on the internal storage for them to be played. You cannot play them while they're stored on an external storage, an external hard disk drive or an external SSD. So it has to be, again, I cannot emphasize enough on that word, has to be stored on the internal storage, because here's the thing. Now, of course, you can connect an external hard disk drive, and there are so many games right now, as you can see, and I'm going to show you here as well, that so many games of mine have actually been stored on the external hard disk drive. You see, all these games have been stored on the external hard disk drive. But the moment you have a game like this, you see this logo here, I don't know if you can actually make that out, but there's an arrow back and forth right here. This means that if I want to play this game, then I have to move this game from the external storage over to the internal storage, and that takes a bit of time. So this is a bummer. So although you can actually store your games on an external hard disk drive, all the games with the X and the S logo, in order for you to play these games, you have to move them back to the internal storage. So that means you have to juggle between your game library. If you're done with one particular game, just move them over to your external hard disk drive, and the one that you want to play currently, you have to move them over to your internal storage. Now this only applies for the games with the X and the S logo, which means they have been optimized for the Series X and S. But in case you do not have a game, or rather, you have a game which is not optimized for the X and the S, then you can comfortably, play them from your external hard disk drive. Like these ones here, they don't have the X and the S logo. So no problems at all. They actually can be played straight from the external hard disk drive. So just thought I would mention this, because this is a bummer. Now this experience, of having to move games around, and you're doing that only because you don't have enough storage. You only have around 364 GB of internal storage, which is actually usable. But on the PlayStation 4 Pro, the benefit is that you don't have this juggling around kind of a thing, because if you connect an SSD or if you connect a hard disk drive, you can play from those games straight from the hard disk. There is no moving around required. So I appreciate that. And this problem only exists because of the less amount of storage that is available on the Xbox Series S, and that is a bummer. And in case you want to get one of those Xbox internal storage plugins, then man, that is expensive. It costs as much as the Series S itself here in India. So that's not a very good option. So till the time we don't have a viable solution, you will have to do this juggling around of games, moving the games in and out of the internal storage and the external storage. And I think that is a bummer when it comes to your Xbox Series S. Just thought I will mention that. And in this case, I think the Xbox Series S takes a backseat and the PS4 Pro gives you a comparatively better experience. But hey, you get some, you give some. You do have the benefit of the fast load times on the Xbox Series S, but the juggling around is required for that. And on the other hand, on the PS4 Pro, you have the seamlessness of just running any game from the internal or the external storage. But hey, you have to work with those really long load times. So there's a bit of pros and cons there for both the devices, but I just thought I will mention this about the storage because this is an important aspect after all. Now, apart from that, like I said when I was talking about the form factor, one has an optical disk drive. So if you have old PS4 discs, then you can insert them, slot them in, and then you can start playing through the discs as well. And if you are a collector, some of us, we like collecting these Blu-ray discs, we like collecting game discs. And if you're one of those people, then of course, PS4 Pro gives you the option, because Xbox Series S, it's an all digital device. So you don't have an optical disk drive. You just have to download from the Xbox store and then play it on the Xbox Series S. So that's something that you would want to keep in mind. In case you want to pause the screen, take a look at this comparison on the specifications. You can do that as well. And now let's move over to the other sections. All right, now let's quickly talk about these two devices and their user interfaces as well. Now with the Xbox Series S, you get you could say a very standard user interface. Now this hasn't changed. It's still the same user interface that you would have seen on your Xbox One. So there is no learning curve. That's the benefit. But then there's a downside that nothing has changed. If you have come from the last gen of consoles, and if you would have wanted something different, then this is not it. This is not it, because this is the same experience. The only thing that has actually changed is this animated background. So you have this feeling of familiarity with the Xbox Series S user interface. It's the same, it's those same tiles that you get all around, and you have your games and your apps neatly tucked away, and that's what it looks like. And apart from that, you just keep scrolling down and you have many different things here. So it's quite a lot that you have on the screen. Now when it comes to your games, again, you have the option of visiting this full library here, and from there you can actually check out all the games that are actually available on your Xbox Game Pass from here. So that's a neat thing. You also have the EA Play, which is included with your Game Pass Ultimate. Really appreciate that as well, and there are many games out there. You have games with gold, and the interface, you could say, to some people it may look boring, and to be honest, it is quite boring to me as well, because nothing has changed. It's still the same. Now there are a few customization options, and if you go over to settings, you have a few options like the TV and display options, and then you have personalization. In terms of personalization, you can actually change the color and theme of your background. You can change your background itself. If you've got some screenshots from your Xbox Series S games, then you can actually use them as your background. And if I click on this, you have this new option called dynamic backgrounds, and this is the only change I would say in your Xbox Series S when compared to your Xbox One S and your Xbox One X. So this is the only difference. You have these dynamic backgrounds, as they call it, and there are a few of them. You can play around with them. You can change the color tone of each of these backgrounds as well, and that's a cool thing. Apart from that, custom image is here, screenshot is here, but it's quite a familiar experience, and no learning curve. Yes, that's the benefit, but then again, like I said, nothing's changed. So some may find it boring, which I personally do as well, and yeah, you feel right at home. Well, that's at least the benefit. Now let's quickly take a look at PS4 Pro's user interface as well and see how that compares to this. The PS4 Pro and the user interface that you have is very neat, I would say, and it had this very linear setup. Everything is very easy to access, For instance, right on your home screen, you have access to the store. You click that button and you're immediately led on to the store. I personally, when it comes to the user interface, I actually like the PS4 Pro's user interface a little more than the Xbox user interface. Now, what I want to tell is that I'm no fanboy, all right? So I don't take sides. I'm not like an Xbox fanboy or a PS fanboy. So don't take this otherwise, but it's just the simplicity of your PS4 Pro's user interface. For instance, all the games, that you frequently play are laid out right here. Now, apart from that, if you scroll right towards the end, you have the game library. Just with the Xbox as well, you have that option. And here you have all your games, all your applications. So this is, in a way, very similar to your Xbox. But apart from this, what do you do? I mean, apart from this, there are many ways of, going over to your TV and video apps as well. For instance, if I click on this, then, my TV and video apps would actually come up here, as you can see. So it just looks a lot more neater, and there are a lot of customization options as well. For instance, if I head over to the settings and if I head over to the themes, here the beauty is that I could change, so many themes. There's so many options available here. As you can see, I can just keep changing it as I want. And there is the theme library as well, I mean, on your PlayStation Store. So you can just go over to PlayStation Store and choose any theme from there. A lot of them are free. Some you have to pay for. And based on, what your needs are, you can just download them, whether free or whether you want to pay for them. That's up to you. But hey, the option's there. And all these themes are game-based. So if you are playing a game, for instance, you've been playing Assassin's Creed as an example, that's what I've got on the background, or in the background rather. Let me correct myself. So here you have it. And it's also got audio. All right, so it has the same kind of Assassin's Creed music running in the background as well. And that's quite nice. Now, when I scroll down from here, for instance, if I'm in any of the games, all right, let's go over to this one here. It gives me information of, how I've fared in the game. Like, for instance, what I've completed. I can immediately take a look at, all my achievements here. And again, I like that in your PS4 Pro. One button and I can take a look at, the progress. I can take a look at all the achievements. And you see how the theme changed, right? When I went over to this game, the background changed according to that game. Now, if I go over Witcher, now Witcher background comes right up, and then you have all the information about the game. Yeah, so I quite like that. This is pretty nice, and I appreciate that. And I think in terms of the interface, I would side with the PS4 Pro. Although the Xbox Series S is a latest gen console, nothing has changed. Whereas with PS5, actually PS5's user interface has changed again. Now, I personally have not experienced it. It looks quite interesting, but it just gives you that feeling of a latest gen console, right? If you are upgrading, you would want to upgrade to something new. I mean, with Xbox, what I feel is that, even if I've changed my car, as an example, I'm just giving an analogy here, even if I've changed my car, I feel like I'm still driving in the same car. So, if you get the drift, yeah, but with PS4 Pro and the upgrade to PS5, again, the interface has changed, but even with the PS4 Pro's interface, I actually like the simplicity here, and I actually like the options of the themes. So I would say PS4 Pro is mighty good despite of being a last gen console. All right, now the next thing that I want to talk about is the Xbox Store. Now when you click on the store had changed right before the launch of the Xbox Series S and X, and it's, you could say again, the same. It's got the same feel, it's got this tiled kind of an interface, and you have quite a lot of options here in terms of games. For instance, if I head over to deals, then you have all the deals that are available, especially with gold. You have this logo of gold here, and that there is a special discount because of Xbox Live Gold. So that's something nice to know. But what is extremely nice is your Game Pass Ultimate. Now this is a dreamer's dream come true. Now I know I've spoken about this in the past as well, and I can't stop raving about it, because with the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, you just don't have access to your Xbox Game Pass, but even EA Play. So even games which have been launched through EA, the publisher, you have access to those games. And Game Pass Ultimate is amazing. You have so many titles here that you are literally gonna be spoiled for choice. In fact, you even have day one titles that are launched. Like, Outriders, you had access to this on Game Pass when it came out. So you didn't have to buy it like you would on your PS4 or on your PS5. And apart from that, even your EA Play, you have so many options. So you're literally spoiled for choice. Now, I'm just gonna go over to my home screen just to show you, the kind of options that you have on your Game Pass Ultimate. Look at the amount of games that are here. You even have things like, Back 4 Blood. That's gonna be available on your Game Pass. Wow, that is incredible. And you had games like, where's that gone? You had games like the Sea of Thieves, which was available on day one. You have Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, which, by the way, has been optimized for Series X and S, and I'm going to talk about that in a bit, the optimization that is. But the Xbox Game Pass is just a dreamer's dream come true, and it just offers fantastic value for money. And your PS4 Pro, in this case, cannot compete with your Xbox Game Pass. Now, PlayStation did try to come up with the PS5, a sort of a subscription service which is similar to this, but again, the amount of games that are available through your Game Pass is just unbeatable right now. And even in terms of backward compatibility, there are some games here which originally came out on the first Xbox. That is incredible. You can go as far back as the original Xbox and actually play those games. And you can even play games which have been released on the Xbox 360. And there are a lot of titles here on your Xbox Game Pass which actually have that. For instance, if you take a look at the Perfect Dark Zero and the Perfect Dark Zero, they're both the same. This is the Rare Replay one. And there are a few other titles as well out here. For instance, Mass Effect on EA Play, for instance, if I go over to EA Play, and if you take a look at this section here, all these titles are from your 360. In fact, this is your Xbox 360 title. So you can go and play all these games on your Xbox Game Pass, because when you upgrade to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, you also get the EA Play along with that, and so many titles here, you're literally spoiled for choice. Now, PS4 Pro's Game Store, let's quickly take a look at that as well. So I'm just going to switch the remote, and I'm going to head over to PlayStation and head over to the store. Now, when it comes to the store of PlayStation, it's a very, very straightforward affair. Now, you do have the PS Plus, which is their subscription service on the PS4 Pro. Now, with PS5, they have more games added, but on the PS4 Pro, you don't have that list of games that you get on the PS5. Here, you would only get certain games that you can download every month. And for the entirety of your subscription service, that means as long as you're paying for your PS Plus, you get to access these games, and you can download them, keep them in your library, and you can play them whenever you want. You can delete them, download them again. It's going to be there in your library. Now, apart from that, as far as the store goes, it's a pretty straightforward experience. Now, they keep running these deals from time to time, so you will have a lot of deals going on, sales, discounts, etc. that you would get on your PlayStation Store, and they're quite good, I would say. Some of these games, you can get them for a real steal deal. And as you can see, some of these titles like Uncharted 4, you're right now getting it at $5.99. And in fact, that is cheaper than any of the pre-owned games as well. So even if you head over to pre-owned games market, you want to get one of those pre-owned discs, this is cheaper than that. All right, $5.99. That is a great deal. In fact, some of the games I've downloaded for like $3.99 or so. So it's really good. You're getting a discount on Watch Dogs 2 as well for $7.99, as you can see. Incredible. So some of these deals are really good, but again, it can't beat your Xbox Game Pass, because you get so many games out there that you're literally spoiled for choice. But what I do like about the game store here is I again like the interface. The interface is extremely easy to go through, and I really appreciate that. For instance, you know, in terms of games here, sorry, not here. Oh yeah, here. You have your PlayStation hits. So some of these games used to be exclusive, like God of War, for instance, and what a fantastic game. And speaking of exclusives, you know, that's something that I do want to talk about next. That was an incredible game. Until Dawn, another exclusive, so good. Last of Us, these are exclusive titles that you would get on the PS4 and the PS4 Pro only. Uncharted 4 again. Bloodborne, all these are exclusive games. Ratchet and Clank. So these titles are not available on your Xbox. And speaking of exclusives, let's quickly talk about them as well. Okay, this time I'm gonna stay on the PS4 Pro first, and then I'm gonna head over to Xbox. While we're talking about the game exclusives, some of these titles, like Uncharted 4, for instance, these are on a whole different level. When we compare the last gen, Xbox One S or Xbox One X, etc., to your PS4 Pro, these games clearly would come out as the winners. And they are the titles that make you want to buy your PlayStation console. Incredible, you know, I mean, incredible game. And God of War is one of those games that would make you buy the PlayStation console. Now, this game is that good. You have God of War 4 after that, which was such an incredible game. And now we have the Ragnarok coming. Now, the good thing is that Ragnarok is also going to be available on your PS4. Yes, it's going to be available on the PS4. Yippee-yi! So, as far as games go and exclusive games go, the kind of games that I personally play, I like a lot of adventure action games like God of War or Uncharted. So, I personally enjoy these Sony exclusives, and the quality of these exclusives are on a whole different level when it comes to your Sony exclusive games. And I would say that they have the upper hand when it comes to exclusives. But hey, this is subjective because it depends on the kind of games that you like. Now, for me, for instance, I like action adventure games, and specifically third-person games. That's why I enjoy games like God of War or Uncharted. That's why I like PS exclusives. Now, if I move over to your Xbox and take a look at Xbox exclusives, then one of the first exclusives that comes to my mind would be your Gears of War. This is definitely one of those games that you should play. And this is reason enough for you to buy an Xbox. This is that good. Now, apart from this, there are a few more exclusives like Halo as an example. I'm not a fan of first-person shooters, but that's something, you know, that you might want to get. Apart from that, you have Recore, which was an exclusive. I don't have it with me, but that was one of the other games that comes on the Xbox and Xbox alone. Now, Sea of Thieves, again. So some Xbox exclusives you would enjoy, but the kind of games that I play as far as exclusives go, I, for one, enjoy the exclusives on Sony's PlayStation more than the Xbox exclusives. But again, this is subjective, so it depends on the type of games that you actually like. All right, there's one more thing that I wanted to talk about, and that is your PS4 Pro enhanced games. Now, a lot of these titles are actually enhanced for the PlayStation 4 Pro. Now, what that enhancement means is that a lot of these games have either got a boost in their frame rate, or they've got a boost in the overall resolution of the game. So a lot of the games actually benefit from 4K textures, and they also benefit from a boost in their frame rate. So some, for instance, have 45 to 60 FPS as well. And what are those games? Well, I'm gonna put up a list in the description box. Should you wanna check it out, check that out. So that's what we mean by PS4 Pro Enhanced. And that's the difference between games that you would find on the PS4 Slim and the PS4 Pro. And that's a big difference, especially when it comes to the resolution of the games. Now, moving over to the Xbox, Xbox also has something called the Xbox optimized games. Now, they have been optimized for your Series X and S. And when you have a game like that, which has been optimized for your Series X and S, you have a logo like this here, stating X and S. Well, this is a bright background, but here you can clearly see that logo, the X and the S logo, which means that it has been optimized for your Series X and S. That means it's got the current gen update. And with that, you get the benefit of, again, boosted frame rates when it comes to your Series X and S, both of them, even this one right here. And I'm gonna put up a list of all the games that actually benefit from that boost to the current gen. And apart from that, what it also benefits from is extremely fast load times. So if you've got a game which has been optimized for your Series X and S, it actually benefits from really snappy load times. And when it comes to load times, Xbox Series S clearly wins the game. It is so good. I mean, this small little beast of a device really shines when it comes to this. Now, apart from this, you also have another advantage with your Xbox, and that is FPS boost. And I've made a video before covering this, and I'm going to put up a list of all the Xbox optimized games, and I'm also going to put up a list of your games with FPS boost. For instance, Titanfall as a game. Now if I go over to manage game, right now it does not have the FPS boost because the FPS boost on this particular game is of 120 frames per second. And that's right, you actually can get 120 frames per second on your Xbox Series S. You're hearing that right. It's not the X, it's the S. And you get the FPS boost. Your television should be capable of 120 Hertz. Now my TV is capable of 120 Hertz, but in 1080p, not in 4K. Right now it's in 4K. That's what it's set at. That's why it's showing that option is not available. But for many other games, for instance, if I head over to Assassin's Creed Rogue, here it says FPS boost. As you can see, there's a tick mark there because this benefits from 60 FPS. So what your FPS boost does is even games, you know, which have 30 FPS, it gives that extra boost, that boost that you need to run it in 60 FPS. And man, what a difference does that make? There is a huge difference when it comes to getting to play in 60 FPS. And I really appreciate about about the Series S, that a device which costs $300 is giving you not just 60 but even 120 FPS in some of the games like Titanfall 2, provided your television is actually capable of dishing that out. So I'm gonna put up the list. Feel free to just scroll through it and then you can download those games. And some games you have the FPS boost activated automatically, but in some games you actually have to go into the manage games option, come over here in the compatibility options, and then you can activate your FPS boost from here. And the list that I'm sharing in the description box, it also tells you, you know, which games have it automatically on and which ones, you know, you would have to get into the compatibility options and then activate it from there. So I really appreciate that about the Xbox Series S, and such a fantastic option, the FPS boost. And 60 FPS, well, it makes a huge difference. If you're a gamer, you are definitely going to enjoy the 60 FPS on the Xbox Series S. And I guess you can tell by my tone that I'm really excited about, you know, the whole FPS boost thing, even while I'm talking about it. It is that good, guys. And that's what we mean by your PS4 Pro Enhanced and your Xbox Series S optimized or X optimized, the logo that you get. So this logo, that is what it actually does. Now for the most important aspect of both these consoles, the Xbox Series S and the PS4 Pro, which is the gaming performance. Now when it comes to the gaming performance, we're going to take a look at the graphics, the frame rates, and the load times. Now let's start with the PS4 Pro first, and let's head over to the game called Rise of the Tomb Raider, because I'm gonna try out a few different games just to show you what these two different consoles can actually achieve. Now on the PS4 Pro, the point to note here is that you have this enhanced fidelity option which says 4K resolution, so you can switch between enhancement modes for the PS4 Pro. High frame rate, which means you can play at Full HD 1080p at 60 frames per second. You have enriched visuals, or you have 4K resolution, which means that you can play this game in 4K resolution on supported 4K televisions in 30 FPS. And I do want to show you something. Now, take a look at the scene and take a look at this option, enhanced fidelity. And what I want you to focus on is the chair. I don't know if the camera will actually be able to capture this or not. This particular drawer, the floor, and the maps. Now these look extremely sharp on the PS4 Pro. I'm quickly gonna head over to Xbox, and I am gonna click on the game Rise of the Tomb Raider. Now, by the way, Xbox has a feature called Quick Resume, as you can see here, and it's a really cool feature. It just means that you can load the games where you actually left off, and it means lower wait times. Now on your Xbox Series S, however, you do not have that option of enhancement like we had on the PS4 Pro. And that means you cannot toggle between performance mode and you cannot toggle between a quality mode on your Xbox Series S when it comes to Rise of the Tomb Raider, by the way. Now, different games have different options. Now, some of the games like Marvel's Avengers, as an example, does give you an option of toggling between your performance mode and your quality mode on your Xbox Series S. So it does depend on the game developer as well. But for this particular game, Rise of the Tomb Raider, you don't have that option. Now let's quickly head over to the game. So let's start with a new game on the Xbox Series S. Let's start with a new file. I'm gonna go with Adventurer, since I always like playing in the easy mode. Now, as far as cutscenes go, let's take a look at, first of all, how the game looks in these cutscenes. So, from the looks of it, so far, pretty nice, and it loaded like this. There was hardly any load times. As soon as you hit that button on the Xbox Series S, the game started. And this looks fantastic. I mean, it's fabulous. If you are sitting at a distance of, let's say, 5 feet to 6 feet, it's gonna look incredible. In fact, I've just taken a back seat, you could say. I've now come back to say about 5 to 6 feet, 2, 4, 6, yes. I'm at 6 feet distance from the screen, from my TV. And the camera, I don't know if it's gonna be able to pick it up in the right way, if it's gonna do justice to it. But to me, from a distance of 6 feet, everything looks sharp, crisp, clear. So it does look fantastic. Can I skip this scene? Is there a way I skip it? Oh yeah, there is an option of skipping it. So let's just skip it. And let's head over to the gameplay. It looks fantastic, folks. I mean, this game was incredible. It was breathtaking, the different locales all around the world. It's just so pretty. But what I can notice, while I'm at a distance of, let's say, right now I'm at 6 feet, I'm just drawing closer, and these objects here, do remember, to take a look at these objects. There's some sort of a little bit of a, I don't know if I could call it aliasing, but overall, yes, it looks good. Let's stay here. I'm gonna pause this game right here, and I'm gonna move over to the PlayStation, and I'm gonna start a new game there. Let's take a look at the difference in terms of your load times. And let's go over to a new game. Let's go over to this place here. I'm an adventurer, and let's start. And even on this, you know, the game starts immediately. I think, yeah, it was almost instant. There was hardly anything to wait for. And even on this, everything looks sharp. It looks neat. Now, by the way, folks, I am recording my video in 24 frames per second. So you won't be able to figure out, you know, how this game actually looks, because some of these games actually run in 60 FPS. But since this video is in 20 FPS, you would not be able to make out the difference. So just thought I will mention that. But again, I'm at a distance of, you could say, 6 feet again. I've just stepped back. The contrast definitely seems a lot more, you could say, richer and more punchier. The picture quality on the PlayStation 4 Pro looks comparatively more contrasty, more saturated, and the blacks are, you could say, quite deep, but that also makes your details get lost in the blacks. But in terms of the sharpness, it is really sharp. Now, I know I said the same thing when it comes to your Xbox Series S as well, but I just feel that overall the PlayStation 4 Pro, when it comes to this particular game, is actually doing a better job in terms of the resolution. The image quality definitely looks much better. And again, I want you all to focus at the same area that I showed on the Xbox Series S. I'm gonna get to that, so I'm just gonna draw myself closer to the screen now. And this particular area here, it looks slightly more sharper. All right, so I'm just gonna move over here. This definitely looks, I feel like it looks more cinematic. It looks better, sharper. Somehow, you know, the color tone, I don't know what it is, but it just looks slightly better. I'm again gonna pause this here. This is the scene. I'm gonna head over to the Xbox. Bam. And what I noticed with the Xbox is the image is much brighter. So I think the image is not as contrasty as the PlayStation 4 Pro. And this particular character in the distance, you know, I'm gonna check his sharpness very quickly, moving over to the PlayStation 4 Pro now. And yeah, whoa, that is definitely sharper. So the draw distance, etc., and all the different things that you see on screen is sharper on your PlayStation 4 Pro. So I'm just going to toggle between the two very quickly. I'm just going to set it up exactly at the same spot. Oops, sorry. I think this is the spot. Yeah, right here. So now I'm going to move over to your PlayStation 4 Pro, and there you have it. Now, I don't know if you can make out the difference, but everything looks sharper on this, on the PlayStation 4 Pro. This is definitely better when it comes to the resolution. Definitely better. Let me know what you guys feel in the comment section. Which one do you think is better? Do you think the Xbox is better, or do you think the PlayStation 4 Pro is better? Now the camera might give a completely different picture. I hope this picks it up exactly how it is, but you know how cameras work. To me, personally, I actually like the image quality out of your PlayStation 4 Pro. And I'm just gonna switch over to PlayStation 4 Pro again, right here. Wow, this is sharp. This is neat. Extremely good. And I'm gonna walk a little just to show you the motion. Although, you know, it's 24 frames per second. I don't know, you know, how much you'd be able to make out in this, but whoa, this looks absolutely mind-blowing on the PlayStation 4 Pro. So I'm gonna stop here and I'm gonna switch over to your Xbox, and let's take the same, you could say, route, because it's a linear route. There's nowhere else to go. Try to go somewhere else, you die. Well, it's not that something's wrong with Xbox Series S. I mean, everything looks sharp. It looks great. But it's just that I prefer the picture quality on your PlayStation 4 Pro. It's so much better. Here. Wow. This is so much better. So I'm gonna pause here, switch over to Xbox Series S. Let me know in the comment section as to what you feel is better. And again, pause here. And now let's get out of this game. Now, the thing that I want to show you is, if I move over to some other game, for instance Witcher as an example, now your quick resume is here. Alright, so that means the game will load immediately. And if I click on a new game, just the story, let's not take a new game, let's continue the game, for instance. Let's skip this if I can I? No, I can't. Wow, I can't skip this, so I have to watch this. Fantastic. All right. Okay, so that's the Witcher. I'm gonna pause it here because what I want to show you is, remember on your Xbox Series S you had the quick resume option. Now let's head over to PlayStation. Let's exit this game, and now let's head over to Witcher. All right. Now what this will say is the following application will close first of all. Okay, so let's click on that. Okay. And let's head over to The Witcher. Now you see how The Witcher with the quick resume straight away went over to the menu option, the menu screen immediately. None of this actually happened. None of this came. And that to a few people might make a huge difference because they wouldn't unnecessarily have to see all this. And then there's this load screen now. Wow. So you see how the quick resume option in the Xbox Series S can actually make such a huge difference. Just gonna skip this, skip it, and continue. Now this particular game, I am at two different places on the Xbox Series S and on the PS4 Pro. So I don't know, if I'll actually be able to show the same locations. I mean, in fact, let me correct myself. I know for sure that I can't show it, but let's quickly jump into the game and take a look at the load screens. It does take some time to get into the game, which I did not experience on the Xbox Series S, by the way. The Series S, well, it was snappy. It was fast. No load times when it comes to this particular game, your Witcher 3. But here, I'm having to wait and I'm commenting on top of this load screen because, hey, who likes waiting? Nobody likes waiting. So here we are waiting, and this is one bad experience or a negative experience that you would have on last gen consoles. This is a direct result of the hard disk drive that exists on the last gen consoles like PS4 Pro. The Xbox definitely gets a huge boost when it comes to load times because of that snappy SSD. And here I am. Okay, so as far as the character goes, let's take a look at the character. I don't know if you can see how fast the screen's moving when I pan the camera around, but it's fast. It's really fast. As far as the character detail goes, character detail is good. Everything is very, very sharp, very neat. The background, everything looks very sharp, very neat. And let's pause this game here and let's head over to your Xbox. So now I'm moving over to the Xbox, and here, well, when I pan, it's as fast as the PlayStation 4 Pro. Well, it also depends on your television. My television, you know, it has MEMC, so that kind of boosts the frame rate. So it's more like a simulated 60 FPS that I get here because of the MEMC. But as you can see, it's nighttime in both the areas, and the character, it looks sharp. From a distance of 6 feet, I can hardly make out a difference. Alright, but when I draw myself close, I can make out the difference, especially in his armor, his body armor. It's not as sharp as your PlayStation 4 Pro. Even the background, it's not as sharp as your PlayStation 4 Pro, but right now I'm looking at it from a distance of almost less than 2 feet. That's when I can make out a difference. If I'm going back to 6 feet, to 7 feet, to maybe 8 feet, I will not be able to make out the difference in terms of the sharpness of this character between the Xbox Series S and your PlayStation 4 Pro. So I'm still here close to the screen, and man, it makes a huge difference if you're up close. This is so much better on the PlayStation 4 Pro. And again, this is The Witcher 3. It's quite an old game. So when it comes to this particular game, even the background, this building looks very sharp. The tree here, the small tree, it looks very sharp. The floor, extremely sharp. Let's switch over to your Xbox. The floor looks sharp, but the background, man, you can tell a difference. These characters in the background, you have a sort of an aliasing, you know, around them. And yeah, this section here, this section, it's not as sharp. This is blurred. This part here is blurred, and you can make out when you are at a distance of 1 feet that it's not as good as your PlayStation 4 Pro when it comes to the image quality, because the image quality on the PlayStation 4 Pro, simply because of the fact that it benefits from that 4K boost in some games. There's dynamic 4K, or in some games, you know, there is 4K, or at least, you know, 1440p, and even 1440p, 1080p, it makes a difference. And I've said this in the past that I prefer resolution over frame rate, because what you're not getting in terms of the frame rate, a television can anyways boost if it has MEMC. So even if you have 30 FPS, your television can boost it to look like it's 60 FPS. So in this case, again, while I'm moving around, everything is smooth. So the disadvantage with the PlayStation 4 Pro is the load times, but the advantage with the PlayStation 4 Pro is that games like Rise of the Tomb Raider, The Witcher 3 here, they just look more beautiful. It's more pretty to look at. Whereas with your Xbox Series S, it's not as pretty to look at when you are sitting at a distance of 1 to 2 feet. So if you're playing it from a very close distance, then it will make a difference. But hey, if you have it on a TV, if you've got your console connected to a TV, then obviously, you know, you're gonna lay back, you're gonna relax. I've again stepped back to say about 6 feet, and I cannot make out a difference. Now, it's not that bad. It's not that bad at all, to be honest. And this is very close and very similar to the PlayStation 4 Pro. Extremely close. Let's move over to the last game. And again, while I'm on the Xbox Series S, I want to make this change. All right, so I'm going to head over to Titanfall. Again, quick resume. And bam, I'm in the game. Now that is what I'm talking about. With the Xbox Series S, you have that option. Now let's move over to the PlayStation 4 Pro, and I'm again gonna exit out of this game, head over to Titanfall. It asks me to close the application. All right, and now I'm gonna head into Titanfall, the game, on PlayStation 4 Pro. But you take a look at the Xbox Series S, right? It had that option of quick resume. None of this that you see came. All right, because it took me exactly where I left off with that particular game. But since we do not have the option of quick resume here on the PlayStation 4 Pro or on the PlayStation 4, well, you have to go through all this hoopla. So I have to click on a new game. I accept it. All right, blah blah, HDMI. All right, and here you have a cutscene. I'm just gonna hold to skip. Can I skip it? Yeah, I can. So I think the colors overall look more punchy, more vibrant to me on the PlayStation 4 Pro. I don't know why, but it's just that I prefer the colors on PlayStation 4 Pro than on the Xbox Series S. Although I do admit that in some areas the blacks do get crushed. Crushed in the sense, like, you know, you lose some amount of details in the black. But hey, I think you can adjust this, you know, with the HDR settings or the brightness settings, and you can get those details back on the PlayStation 4 Pro. But overall, I think I prefer the picture quality on the PlayStation 4 Pro. And man, this looks good on the PlayStation 4 Pro. It looks amazing, in fact. Wow. All right. So this is done. Yes, the controls look fine. All right, so I'm gonna move over. Now I know the scene is pretty dark here. I don't know how the camera will be able to pick this up. But in terms of sharpness, you know, it's just amazing. And wow. It looks much better on the PlayStation 4 Pro, this particular game, because I've moved over, you know, all these sections on your Xbox Series S as well, and I can say for sure, without a shadow of a doubt, that it looks much better on the PlayStation 4 Pro. I'm quickly heading over to this particular section because I want to show what it looks like on the Xbox Series S versus the PlayStation 4 Pro. Okay, so this is where we are when it comes to your Xbox Series S as well. So take a look at this tree. There's a lot of details that we can check out. In fact, even in the bark, or you know, this area here, there's so much detail that I can actually check out on your PlayStation 4 Pro. Now I'm gonna head over to Xbox Series S. All that detail, it's gone, it's lost. If I'm checking it out from a distance of 1 to 2 feet, in fact 2 feet you could say, this looks so hazy. This looks extremely hazy. I'm gonna head back over to 6 feet. It's respectable from a distance of 6 feet. But let's head over to PlayStation 4 Pro again, and wow, it looks incredible. There's a huge difference. This target area, it looks so sharp. In fact, I can see the leaves floating out here and they are crystal clear. I'm not sure if the camera will be able to pick that up, but when I head over to Xbox, this area, hazy. I can hardly make out the leaves. It's hazy, 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 hazy overall. So in terms of the graphics, the PlayStation 4 Pro, in my personal opinion, and from the games that I have tested, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Witcher, and Titanfall 2, it looks much better on the PlayStation 4 Pro. When it comes to load times, there is no beating Xbox Series S. It's a far superior device when it comes to load times, simply because of the fact that it benefits from the SSD. And to top that off, you have the option of quick resume on your Xbox Series S. So you don't have that option on your PlayStation 4 Pro. So PlayStation 4 Pro, although it triumphs and wins when it comes to your overall resolution, but it loses out on the loading times. Number one, it does not have your option of quick resume, and apart from that, it also does not have something called the FPS boost, which some of the games have. So I'm just trying to wrap my head around why would somebody buy a PlayStation 4 Pro over an Xbox Series S, even in 2021 heading over to 2022? Well, number one, if you are a person who actually prefers resolution over frame rate, and a lot of the games like for instance even the new game Life is Strange, which has a lot of storytelling, a lot of cutscenes, a lot of a cinematic kind of a feel to it. Those games, even if they are not in 60 FPS, would not make a difference. Even if it's in 30 FPS, games like that would actually hardly make a difference. But if you are into games like Halo as an example, even Titanfall 2 as an example, this particular game that we are on, first-person shooters, you would definitely appreciate the added frame rate, like 60 FPS or even 120 FPS, because Titanfall 2 on your Xbox Series S actually benefits from 120 FPS. It has 120 FPS through FPS boost. So why would somebody want to buy the PlayStation 4 Pro? Simply because of the resolution. That's it. Games look much better on it. Period. And why would somebody want to buy the Xbox Series S? Well, for one, it has extremely low loading times, which is negligible. Number two, FPS boost. Number three, quick resume. Yeah. So these are the reasons as to why you would buy the Xbox Series S. The frame rates, you can get 120 FPS on a game like Titanfall 2. So these are some of the reasons as to why somebody would tilt towards your Xbox Series S and not the PlayStation 4 Pro. But let me tell you again that me personally, I prefer resolution. That's why I've still stuck on with my PlayStation 4 Pro. I have not been able to find the PlayStation 5 at retail price. That's why I got myself an Xbox Series S. If I had an option of buying an Xbox Series S versus a PlayStation 5, trust me, I would have chosen the PlayStation 5 simply because of the fact that it has more storage out of the box. Number two, even when it comes to power, it's a far more powerful device. It's comparatively more powerful when it comes to comparing it to the Xbox Series S. So between Xbox Series S and PlayStation 5, the simple option for me personally would have been PlayStation 5, because like I told you in the game section, the games that you get, the exclusive games that you get on Sony and its platform, it's more to my liking. Those are the type of games that I personally play. But this is subjective. If you like first-person shooters and if you like the titles that come on Xbox Series S, then I would say Xbox Series X or S would be a good option to go for. So hopefully, I took my time with this particular section and I've babbled for a long time, but hopefully it gives you clarity on why somebody would actually choose Xbox Series S or the PlayStation 4 Pro in 2021. Well, that's it for this video, folks. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope you have now understood the key differences between these two consoles, so you'll be able to make an informed decision. Now, with that said, if you think that I've missed out on any points or any specific aspects of these two consoles, then do let me know in the comment section. I love to hear from you folks. In fact, I look forward to your comments after I post every single video of mine. Now, apart from that, it is also my request that you please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you have seen this video, this is the type of videos that you would get on my channel. Check out my other videos as well on the channel. And if you really like it, then again, share it with your friends and family members, and also advise or suggest them to hit that like and subscribe button. Now, if you haven't already hit that bell icon, I would suggest that you hit that bell icon as well, because every single week, when I release a new video of mine, you will get a notification that I have released that video. So with that said, that's a wrap for this one, folks. Thank you so much for watching, and until we meet again in the next video, folks, this is me signing off, and I'd say take care, stay safe, and may God bless you all.